It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It's nice to meet you too.
So before we get into your good work, I want to know this. 5.5, 6 years ago, this pandemic was raging, changing our lives, our world. How did you get through that coronavirus era, and how did it change the way that you approach living today?
Well, I think the main thing is that I've been remote for 15 years, for over 15 years. So it didn't really affect my work life as much as it did my team because my kids are grown. So I didn't have to worry about the background noise. But I was working for a company and we did courses, e-learning courses. And the big impact was, people had their families home with them at the times that they normally would work. So I, had to have a really flexible policy for when people could work, because we recorded, so that was a big thing for us. But besides that, from a life perspective, I think the big thing for me was, you know, we really stayed in the house. We didn't really go out. And it was really a good time for my husband and I to just really be able to reconnect and just spend time together. I know for some it drove people further apart, but my husband and I have worked together in multiple places over the years, so it was just another good opportunity for us to really be connected.
So let's get into the work that you do as the creator of the the leadership equation. I want to know this. If you were to be put in front of a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds at career day, and one of the kids in the back of the room wanted to know what you do for a living, how do you boil this down and explain to them what you do on a daily basis?
Really simple. I help people to learn how to lead teams with their whole brain.
Okay. So, what did you want to be at that age? What was your dream job?
I was always to be a writer.
Okay.
I always did. I used to write stories actually in middle school and used to pass them around to the kids and get feedback. So I've always wanted to be a writer.
So, speaking of leadership, I'm trying to phrase this the right way. I look at our country right now with the way it's being led or not led, or however you want to term it. And what are the kids getting from what's happening in our world today with leadership? Like, where are good examples of leadership in our world today?
I really try to stay away from the political parts
Yeah.
of it, but
Yeah.
the thing for me is that we really have to look more towards the role models that we have in our lives, and stop trying to focus so much on whether it be the influencers or it be political figures or whoever that might be. And I know that all kids don't necessarily have that in their lives. I know I certainly there were times in my life where I didn't have that, but there were teachers who actually stepped in and filled that role for me. So we really have to open our eyes and look around and just see. Um, you'd be surprised who emerges as a role model. And even for myself, I never considered myself really a role model, but as I really got into teaching and learning and my career took off, I used to get messages from people who would say to me, how much it meant for them to see a person like me, that looked like them, to be in a role of authority. And I've always taken that to heart, right? And it was really humbling to hear people say that.
So, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay. So, take me back to because by the time we're 3 years old, our personality, there's a lot of things that are already set in stone. What was it about your upbringing that made you write and eventually get to this leadership perspective? How did this happen?
So I was born a statistic. My parents had me before they were old enough to know how to drive. So my father used to tell me how he used to ride his bike actually to come to the house to see me every day. So everything about my life and my background, is textbook, people think you're not going to amount to anything, type. And I spent a lot of time really on my own. And you grow up fast when you live in a single parent household. And I was the oldest, and my brothers are 10 and 15 years younger than me. So I was the extra mom. And just the responsibility that I have had for my whole life, and I actually got married at 19. My husband and I have been married now for 35 years.
Wow.
And, you know, it's always been this thing of when I was young, people said it was maturity. But, I really feel like all of the different experiences that I had through my life shaped me, right? They built me to be a leader. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book. It's called Born a Statistic, Built to be a Leader, because I do believe that leaders are built, and it comes from your life experiences. But it also is this thing of like leadership can be taught as a skill, like as a craft, where a lot of people look at it and they say, "Hey, it's a personality trait." So for somebody like me who didn't have the opportunity to go to college, I still was put into leadership roles. My highest leadership role was executive level, and you know, sure there were things that I had to learn, obviously, but it was really very much about the experiences that I had in my life. They prepared me for leadership. And then as I went through leadership, I did have some mentors who were really great along the way who actually helped me and supported me.
So, who's been that guiding light, that inspirational force or hero in your life?
Honestly, like I said, is the people who've been around me, the people who have supported me. My mentors, Terry Cox and Scott Powell. Actually, I worked under both of them, and they were people who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And when I needed that extra support, they were there to support me.
So, loving the written word and being a writer, who were early authors, books that really swayed you?
Oh wow, it's really hard to pick, especially when you talk about younger. I mean, I read a lot of like all teenagers, I read a lot of fiction
Yeah.
growing up. But if I think about books as an adult that really influenced me, there's a book, and the exact title of the book escapes me right now. But one of the things that it was about was really making sure that as a leader that you did the right things regardless of how people responded to them. And at the time, one of the challenges that I was running into was we were in the middle of a huge M&A, and the two teams were just like huge rivals. And there were people who didn't necessarily agree. So think about it like this. There's this rival company that purchases the company that I work for, but yet they put me in charge of that particular, team, right?
Yes.
So there was this dynamic of, hey, well, we bought you, why are you in charge? Right. So this book was one of the books that actually helped me to actually have the confidence to I already knew what to do, but to have that confidence to be able to address it when the cultures were so different between the two companies. So that's one. And like I said, for the life of me, the title of that escapes me right now. But another book that was really influential to me was E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited. I really love that book. And honestly, with my husband and I, we listen to a lot of books, a lot of audio books, and I look at it like there are pieces that come from all of these things. I think the big thing is that sometimes we think we're supposed to have just this huge epiphany where suddenly we just know things. And for me, it was very much about picking up pieces along the way from different authors.
So, what was the first thing that you wrote that you gave to somebody and a good you got a good response that made you feel validated as a writer that eventually led you to writing your book? Did you have a moment like that?
Poetry. I in high school, I wrote a lot of poetry. It was that outlet for me.
Yeah.
And I had a teacher actually who read on some of my poetry and really encouraged me to, to really, she's like, your work is actually really good. You
Yeah.
really should do something with this. And I took a lot of detours, of course, up getting married and everything. But as I got into my tech career, it ended up being that I was a writer in a different way. I ended up doing a lot of like courses for Fortune 500 companies. So I still got to use that skill set, but just not quite in the same way that I originally envisioned it.
So writing this book, what was it like? What was the journey like when you decided I'm going to write this book? And what was it like to get in there and kind of examine your life and look at things and bring it to the forefront? How did it feel?
This was really, really interesting. The thing that really shocked me about writing this book was I was writing the book for a couple of years and didn't even realize it. So when I finally sat down, I had a coach who actually was saying, "Hey, like you really need to get back into writing, right?" She was thinking about it from the perspective of for myself. And once I actually took that advice and started writing, the book just poured out of me. I wrote the book itself in about 3 weeks.
Wow. Wow. So let me ask you this. If you could meet anybody on the planet right now that you find inspirational, someone that might help you on your journey, a good leader, who would you love to meet and talk to?
I think the person I would really love to meet would be probably Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you know, there's a lot of things that I know that I feel really good and confident about, but I would love to pick his brain.
So I'm curious in our lifetimes when I think about, and the reason why I brought up politics, and I don't want to get into politics, but I think about the embodiment of leadership for a lot of people is what leaders say during times of crisis or during very key essential times. We have
Mhm.
all of these images of leaders. In your life, whether directly or indirectly, who has been one of the most profound leaders that's shaped the way that you approach leadership and try to teach that to others?
If I think about a political figure or even just a public figure, um, I would say honestly, Obama would be one
Yeah.
person
Yep.
for sure.
Uh-huh.
But I think also for me, it would be somebody like Oprah Winfrey,
Yeah.
and Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
And basically people who are, I really admire people who are kind of, they have great hearts, but they're no BS,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the type of person that really speaks to me. Those are the type of people that I look up to.
So when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, what is it that gives you this energy to help people, to make change, to push for better leadership, and to take care of your soul? What is that for you every day?
I actually wake up before, I don't even use an alarm clock. I haven't used an alarm clock in years. But the thing that drives me most, especially right now, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is because there's this gap, and particularly for people like me who come up through the ranks and you're put into a leadership role. And a lot of companies now don't train their leaders, right? They just drop them in and they're expected to just know what to do. And I went through that, right, all through my career. And many times I had to actually start over at the bottom. So I always had to work my way up. So I ran into some of the things that you think, oh, I only have to deal with this once in my career. I've had to deal with them, some of them repeatedly. And I I feel like I can help those people, right? And because of the my path, I have a really good vision in terms of gap analysis. So I see a lot of things that, in places where companies are having trouble, but they're blind spots for them. And I'm like, I can help these leaders to actually, fill in those blind spots, and become better overall leaders for their company, for their teams, and for themselves.
So there's a lot of viral clips on the internet with CEOs and consultants and coaches that kind of get into the idea of work-life balance. They either blow it completely out of the water or they have
Yeah.
these philosophies that you just wouldn't expect. What's your philosophy? How do you fall on that whole line of work-life balance?
Yeah. So for me, I don't think we have to choose between people and performance. A lot of people choose and they don't even realize that they're making the choice. You can talk to a lot of CEOs and they say, "Yeah, we have great values, right? And we take care of our people." But when you talk to the people, it's they feel differently. And particularly in something like tech, right, where I came up in tech, and because of the fast pace and the always something urgent happening, a lot of times people lean towards results. They lean towards performance. And the philosophy that I have is that you don't have to choose, right? It's very much about, you know, I call, and thinking basically. So for me, it's all about, like I said, lead with your whole brain. You have your left brain and it's analytical, and you have your right brain and it's really more so like emotional or relational. People use one or the other. They tend to use one or the other. For me, it's about using both sides of your brain, and not just using both, but integrating the two. And by doing so, it helps you to understand more about how you actually can basically master people and performance so that you can actually, people can have that work life balance, but that doesn't mean that they have to sacrifice work, right?
Yeah.
And the other way around as well.
So, when we're living our lives, we're in our careers, things move so fast. We're just focused on kind of what we're doing. But there's always that word ahead of us, like, like the Hollywood sign in the hills that says retirement. What do you think about when you see that big word retirement? What comes to your mind?
The thing that comes about it for me is I'm a workaholic. I don't know that I will ever fully retire.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing for me is that I still want to just continue to help people. It's just part of my DNA. And I really look at it like I see myself doing something, whether it's continuing to do YouTube or whether it's continuing to do something, just that I love to help people. Um, right now it's leaders, one day it may be something else. I was fortunate enough to help over 10,000 people like upgrade their careers. So for me, it's I look towards the end of my life and I see that as a capstone, right? Like not as, me just completely stepping away.
So if you had a dream tonight, ran into a 16-year-old version of you, and you had a big book in your hands, and it was a coffee table book, and it was your life so far, and you handed it over and said, "This is what's happened so far," would that young version of you believe it?
No, not at all. Not at all. The young version of me was in a very different place. My life was I was working basically when I was 16, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to college. So my whole focus was I just wanted to do well enough to take care of me at that time. And I had a job where I got my first management role at 17. So for me, it was about I'm going to be able to do this, and I was focused on I'm going to be able to do this while my peers are in college. I'm already going to be ahead of them where they'll come out of school and still won't make as much as I will. So I said, okay, this is a path for me. So
Yeah.
I was laser focused on that. And then of course I got married and all kinds of other stuff changed that and changed my path. The thing I always say is that my mother, she always worked, 2, 3 jobs. She taught me to work hard, but my husband taught me to work smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say you walked into a room of everybody that knows you in a business professional sense, and you swim through that group of people to a podium and you can tell them one fun story about you. Maybe the first concert you went to, a great sporting event you witnessed, a wonderful place you traveled to, jumping out of an airplane, some kind of fun story that would humanize you to that room. What would be a great story you would tell that room?
The story I would tell actually would be how I used a rap video. I made a rap and I took a whole bunch of people from my teams and we did basically the Moana song.
Yeah.
And I redid the words basically to apply to us. And I had the sunglasses and, and did all of that. And that was super fun.
Yeah.
You know, the And it's weird that that you say, hey, that's kind of work related, but the fact that it brought everybody together, those people, I still consider a lot of them close friends and almost like family,
Yeah.
and being able to spend that time and do things that brought us closer together as human beings. I just absolutely positively love doing things like that.
So, of everything that you've done in your career and your life, everything you've evolved to overcome and achieved, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the most proud of helping families, helping these people create lasting legacies for their families. People like me who didn't get to go to college, and were able to get into IT, and some of those people I see them now, and they're senior IT professionals now. So for me, that is that's like the ultimate achievement, being able to say that I played a small part in helping these people to completely change the lives for themselves and for their future generations.
So, I'm going to take that a step further. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone you work with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
The way I see myself, I still see myself as that, the goofy person who I love music, and you know I do things because they're the right thing to do, not because, not in a performative way, or because somebody says, "Hey, this is the thing that you should do." I genuinely feel better in my soul when I can do things that help others. So that's who I see myself as. I still love to do all, I'm a Star Trek geek. I love to watch sci-fi shows. Um, and I just still see myself as that person.
So, if anybody wants to reach out, they have questions, they want to hire you, they want to get your book, any of the good business, where do they go?
Sure, they can actually go to my YouTube channel. It's the Leadership Equation. Um, sorry, at Leadership Trade School is my YouTube channel, and they can actually get me on LinkedIn. And my username on LinkedIn is Tia A Williams 2.
Okay. Tia, what a great story. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking a minute out. Best of luck. Have a wonderful new year. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
You bet. So,